Hey there, this is Teacher Law Podcast, episode 89, Historic versus Historical. My name's Ola, I'm an English teacher and I've overcome a massive language blockade myself, and now I help you do the same. If you want to eliminate your fear of speaking and boost your vocabulary, brush up your grammar, improve your pronunciation, this podcast is for you. Go to my website for full transcripts and worksheets to each episode. Happy learning! Hello and welcome. Today I've got something new for you. It's gonna be quick, it's gonna be brief, and it's gonna exercise your brain. You really need to focus on this episode in order to make sure you fully understand the difference between historic and historical. These two words are far similar, I agree. Nevertheless, they are used in different contexts. Why is it important in terms of your language blockade? Fear of speaking? Well, I can imagine that if you don't know which one is correct, you decide not to say anything at all. Am I wrong? See, it's better to communicate, even if that means making mistakes. Sometimes, though, you might communicate the wrong thing for the sake of confusion. In this episode, you'll learn if the words can be used interchangeably. You will find how to use historic and how to use historical, and then, and only then, so stay with me, you will practice. I've prepared 15 sentences with both historic and historical for you, so carefully listen, embrace the meaning, retain it in your memory, and finally repeat. Let's begin without further ado. Historic and historical can be interchangeable, but have taken on separate roles in most use cases. We'll talk about it in a second. At their core, historic and historical are variants of the same word. However, over the time, they've mostly settled into distinct roles. Anyways, should we use a or maybe an before those words? Ahistoric, anhistoric, ahistorical, and historical. Guess what? Both. Both are used. Still, ahistorical, ahistoric is more common. So it is more common, hence more natural, to say a historic building, a historical building. Well, you might think there should be no problem because the word starts with the audible sound h. That is a consonant. The confusion stems from the fact that if in the words historic and historical, we put the accent on the second syllable. Historic, historical. Let's repeat. Historic, historical. Also, many people pronounce it, especially in the USA, I'm not sure, but that's what I hear, with this, without this h sound at the beginning. So they say historic, historical, historical, an historical moment, an historic moment. Let's move on. Historical. Historical is used as the general term for describing history, such as historical society. Historical usually describes something that is connected with the past, or with the study of history, or something that really happened in the past. Was Sherlock Holmes a historical figure? For example. Historical is a broader term, so use it when you want to refer to history in general. Historical museum, historical society, historical monarch, historical note. Historical is the word you can use to describe anything from the past, important or not important. A historical event is just something that happened in the past. It doesn't have to be an event that people are going to talk about and remember as important 50 years from now. It's just from the past. Historic. Historic is usually used to describe something that is so important that it is likely to be remembered. Today is a historic occasion for our family. Historic is usually reserved for important and famous moments in history, such as a historic battle, historic documents, historic ruins. Historic is the word you want to use to describe an item or event that's important or influential in history, important milestones, events in our history. Last but not least, remember that any item or event from the past is historical. Only the important ones are historic. I've seen somewhere this memory trick for these words. It's a good one, so please listen. The word that ends in ik is important because it starts with the same letter. They both start with the letter I. And the word that ends in all is all in the past. Okay, so those both words start with the letter A, all, historical, and ig, important, historic. This is it. There's nothing to add. So the only thing that is left is the most important one, in fact, that is your practice. Like always, listen and repeat out loud. I have been doing some historical research. I've been doing some historical research. It's unlikely that the share price will exceed historic levels. It's unlikely that the share price will exceed historic levels. The legend of John Henry is based on a real historical figure. The legend of John Henry is based on a real historical figure. Murals depict the region's historic events. Murals depict the region's historic events. It is a historic moment, he told journalists. It is a historic moment, he told journalists. Was Robin Hood a historical figure? Was Robin Hood a historical figure? Today is a historic occasion for our country. Today is a historic occasion for our country. This is a historical event. This is a historical event. These battlefields were declared a National Historic Landmark. These battlefields were declared a National Historic Landmark. We used a historical map to learn about the history of our town. We used a historical map to learn about the history of our town. Landing on the moon was a historic event. Landing on the moon was a historic event. I have been doing some historical research. I have been doing some historical research. You must place these events in their historical context. You must place these events in their historical context. Take a tour of historic sites in the old city. Take a tour of historic sites in the old city. The building is of historical importance. The building is of historical importance. Well done. Thank you for doing this. Now, please download the worksheet and practice some more on your own. Translate sentences into English and please don't forget to say them out loud when they're finished. The worksheet is in your inbox, and if you're a member of Top People, you know that, but if you're not, please become one. It's free, and one of the best ways to subscribe is to download the newest worksheet at teacherola.com/89. So here you have it, 2 confusing adjectives explained and practiced. Today we had historic and historical. The main takeaway is this: all events from the past are historical. All of them are historical, if you catch my drift. But only some of them are historic, epic, important. Thank you for tuning in, for staying till the end, and if you want to support this podcast, please share this episode with someone you think might need it. And I would love this podcast to reach people who feel blocked when it comes to speaking English. Next week, we're going to explain song lyrics. It's going to be John Mayer. So, see you then. See you next Wednesday. Till then, have a great, fearless week. Remember to say it out loud. Happy learning. Bye-bye.